Ji-hoon Kim stood in the waiting chamber of Nexus Prime, the largest space station in known space. His hands were not shaking, but they wanted to. Today was the day Earth would meet the Galactic Council. Today was the day humans would join the galaxy. The chamber was huge and cold. Everything was made of smooth metal that reflected light in strange ways. Ji-hoon had never seen anything so clean or so empty of life. Back on Earth, even the most important buildings had plants or pictures or something that made them feel alive. This place felt like being inside a computer. A soft tone played through hidden speakers. The doors opened with no sound at all. Ji-hoon straightened his best suit and walked forward into history. The council chamber was even bigger than he had imagined. 12 different alien species sat in a perfect circle around a raised platform in the center. Each group looked completely different from the others. Some were tall and thin like walking sticks. Others were short and wide with too many arms. A few floated in the air without any visible support. But they all had one thing in common. None of them showed any emotion. At all, Ji-hoon stepped onto the platform. A ring of lights came on around him. He could feel the weight of hundreds of alien eyes studying him. The silence stretched on and on until he started to wonder if he was supposed to speak first. Then a voice filled the chamber. It came from everywhere, and nowhere at once. "Human representative, you stand before the Galactic Council of Civilized Species. State your purpose." Ji-hoon had practiced this moment 1,000 times. He had memorized every word of his formal greeting. Earth's best diplomats had spent months preparing the perfect speech. But when he opened his mouth, something else came out instead. "Well, first I want to say thank you for having me. This place is incredible. Though I have to admit, I got lost twice on the way here and had to ask for directions from what I think was a very patient robot." A ripple went through the chamber. Not sound exactly, but something like surprise made physical. Ji-hoon realized he had made his first mistake. The voice spoke again, but now it seemed confused. Clarification requested. "What is the meaning of thank you?" Ji-hoon blinked. "How do you explain gratitude to beings who had never heard of it?" "Thank you means, I am happy that you helped me. I want you to know that your kindness makes me feel good." Another ripple, stronger this time. One of the tall, thin aliens leaned forward. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind through metal tubes. The human experiences neural fluctuations in response to basic courtesy protocols. This indicates severe mental instability. "No, no," Ji-hoon said quickly. "I am not unstable. I am grateful, happy. It is normal for humans to feel good when others treat them well." A creature that looked like a living crystal pulsed with different colors. Define happy. This term does not exist in our translation matrices. Ji-hoon stared at them. "How do you define happiness to beings who had never felt it?" "Happy is when you feel light inside, when things are good and you want to smile, when you look forward to tomorrow because today was nice." The crystal being pulsed, faster. "The human describes a malfunction in emotional regulation systems. Recommend immediate medical intervention." "I am not malfunctioning," Ji-hoon said. He could feel his prepared speech slipping away from him completely. "I am just human. We feel things. We enjoy things. We find joy in simple moments." The word joy hit the chamber like a bomb. Every alien in the room began making noises at once. Some beeped, others clicked, a few made sounds like static electricity. The noise built and built until the central voice cut through it all. Silence. The chamber went quiet instantly. Human. "Representative, you will explain the concept joy immediately." Ji-hoon took a deep breath. This was not going according to plan at all. Joy is like happiness, but bigger. It is when something makes you feel so good that you cannot help but show it. You might laugh or dance or sing. You share joy with others. because it feels better when you are not alone with it. He paused, looking around the circle of utterly still faces. For example, right now I should probably be scared. You are all much older and smarter than humans. Your technology is amazing. You could probably destroy Earth without thinking about it. But instead of fear, I feel joy. Do you know why? None of them answered. Because I am the first human to meet you. I am part of something bigger than myself. No matter what happens next, I got to see wonders today that no other human has ever seen. That makes me happy. That fills me with joy. And then, Ji-hoon did something that changed galactic history forever. He smiled. It was not a big smile, not forced or fake, just a simple, genuine smile of a person who was exactly where he wanted to be, doing exactly what he wanted to do. The effect on the council was immediate and dramatic. Several aliens made alarm sounds. Others began rapid conversations in languages that sounded like math equations. The floating beings actually moved backward through the air. The crystal creature was pulsing so fast now that it looked like a disco ball. The human facial structure has been compromised. Medical emergency protocols should be activated. I am not injured, Ji-hoon said, still smiling. This is what humans look like when we are happy. It is called smiling. We do it when we feel good. An alien that looked like a walking tree made a sound like creaking wood. The human claims to alter its physical appearance voluntarily in response to internal emotional states. This level of biological instability suggests evolutionary failure. The central voice spoke again, and now Ji-hoon could hear something new in it. Not exactly fear, but definitely concern. Human representative. Your species displays severe psychological abnormalities. You experience uncontrolled emotional fluctuations. You perform unnecessary physical modifications of your appearance. You express gratitude for basic interactions. You claim to experience joy in potentially dangerous situations. The voice paused, and when it continued, it sounded like a judge, passing sentence. These behaviors are incompatible with civilized society. However, the Council recognizes that primitive species often suffer from developmental disorders. We will grant Earth provisional membership in the galactic community. Provisional membership, another voice added, with the expectation that humanity will mature beyond these psychological defects within 5 standard galactic cycles. Ji-hoon's smile grew wider. They thought human emotions were a disease that could be cured. They had no idea what they were in for. Thank you, he said again, and watched them all flinch. We look forward to learning from you, and we hope you might learn something from us too. The crystal being pulsed once, very slowly. What could a species with your emotional disorders possibly teach us? Ji-hoon's smile became a grin. How to be happy. The chamber fell completely silent, and in that silence, Ji-hoon Kim planted the first seed of what would become the greatest cultural revolution in galactic history. 3 months after first contact, Minseo Park stepped off the transport ship onto Kepler Research Station. The metal corridors were just as cold and empty as Nexus Prime had been. But this time, a human would be staying longer than just one diplomatic meeting. Minseo carried a single bag and wore a bright yellow jacket that seemed to glow in the station's dim lighting. She had volunteered for this assignment because someone had to be the first. Someone had to show the galaxy that humans could work alongside alien species without causing problems. She had no idea that problems were exactly what she was about to cause. The station director met her at the docking bay. Dr. Keth was a member of the Hive Collective, one of the insect-like species that had joined the Galactic Council 2,000 years ago. He stood nearly 7 feet tall on 6 thin legs. His compound eyes reflected the light in thousands of tiny rainbows. Human Minseo Park, Dr. Keth said in a voice that buzzed like electrical wires. You will follow standard protocols at all times. Deviation from established procedures is not permitted. Questions will be answered during designated information periods only. Minseo smiled up at him. Nice to meet you too, Dr. Keth. Thank you for letting me work here. I brought some coffee from Earth if you would like to try it sometime. Dr. Keth's antenna twitched. His translator device made several beeping sounds before responding. Gift giving is not part of standard greeting protocols. Please report to Laboratory Section 7 immediately. As they walked through the station, Minseo looked around with open curiosity. Everything was perfectly organized. Every surface was clean. Every light was exactly the same brightness. It was impressive, but it was also the most boring place she had ever seen. How long have you worked here, Dr. Keth? She asked. Irrelevant personal information. Focus on your assigned tasks only. Do you enjoy your work? Dr. Keth stopped walking. His compound eyes turned to stare at her. Define enjoy. Minseo had read the reports from Ambassador Kim's meeting with the council. She knew that positive emotions were foreign concepts to most alien species, but hearing it in person was still shocking. Enjoy means you like doing something. It makes you feel good. You look forward to it. I perform my assigned functions with optimal efficiency, Dr. Keth replied. Personal satisfaction is irrelevant to productivity. But don't you want to feel good about your work? Don't you want to be happy? Dr. Keth's antennae began twitching faster. Report to Laboratory Section 7 immediately. No more questions. Laboratory Section 7 was a massive room filled with scientific equipment that Minseo did not recognize. Dozens of hive workers moved between the machines with perfect coordination. No one spoke. No one made unnecessary movements. It was like watching a dance performed by robots. Minseo was assigned to work with a junior researcher named Zik. He was smaller than Dr. Keth, and his chitin was a darker shade of brown. When she introduced herself, he simply stated his designation number and began explaining her duties. You will calibrate energy readings on scanner array 15, Zik buzzed. Acceptable variance is 0.001%. Failure to maintain precision will result in assignment termination. Minseo nodded and got to work. The task was repetitive and boring, but she had expected that. What she had not expected was how quiet everything was. Back on Earth, laboratories were full of conversation and laughter. People shared ideas and made jokes and complained about their equipment when it did not work properly. Here, the only sounds were the humming of machines and the occasional click of chitinous feet on metal floors. After 2 hours, Minseo could not stand it anymore. Zeke, she said softly, does this scanner always make that weird whistling sound? Zeke looked up from his own workstation. The audio frequency is within normal parameters. I know, but it sounds like it's trying to sing opera. Listen. She tilted her head and mimicked the scanner's high-pitched whine. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Something very strange happened to Zek's face. His mandibles moved in a way that hive faces were not supposed to move. He made a sound that was almost like the scanner's whistle, but softer. That is not an efficient use of vocal apparatus, he said, but he made the sound again anyway. Over the following days, Minseo continued to work quietly and efficiently, but she could not help being herself. When she dropped a tool, she laughed and said, "Oops." When the coffee machine broke down, she talked to it like it was a stubborn pet. "Come on, you can do it. Just one more cup, please." She did not notice that Zeke had started listening to her conversations with the broken machines. She did not see him trying to copy her facial expressions when he thought no one was watching, but Dr. Keth noticed. After 1 week, Dr. Keth called Minseo to his office. The room was exactly like the rest of the station, clean, organized, and completely without personality. Human Minseo Park, Dr. Keth began. There have been concerning developments in Laboratory Section 7. Is my work not satisfactory? Minseo asked. I've been very careful with the calibrations. Your technical performance is adequate. However, you have been observed engaging in non-productive behaviors. Worse, these behaviors appear to be affecting other workers. Minseo frowned. What behaviors? Dr. Keth consulted a datapad. You verbalize reactions to minor errors. You anthropomorphize mechanical equipment. You produce unnecessary sounds with no communicative purpose. And most concerning, worker Zik has begun imitating these behaviors. Imitating them how? Yesterday, worker Zik vocalized the phrase oops when he miscalibrated a sensor array. This morning, he was observed placing a small decorative object on his workstation. When questioned, he stated that the object made him feel what he called good inside. Dr. Keth's compound eyes focused directly on Minseo. These behaviors serve no functional purpose. They reduce efficiency and disrupt established protocols. Explain why you continue to perform them. Minseo thought for a moment. How do you explain being human to someone who had never experienced humanity? Dr. Keth, do you know what makes life worth living? Optimal performance of assigned functions. But what if there's more than that? What if feeling good about small things makes you work better, not worse? What if laughing when you make a mistake helps you learn from it instead of being afraid to try new things? Dr. Keth was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "The hive has functioned efficiently for over 50,000 years without these behaviors. We do not require emotional responses to maintain productivity." Maybe not. Minseo agreed, but maybe you've been missing something important. That afternoon, Minseo returned to Laboratory Section 7 to find something that had never happened in hive history. Worker Zik was showing another worker his small decorative object, a smooth piece of colored metal he had found in the recycling center. The second worker, designated Vith, was asking questions about why the object was appealing to look at. "It serves no function," Vith buzzed. "No," Zik agreed, "but observing it generates pleasant internal responses. The human term is beautiful." By the end of the week, 3 more workers had begun collecting small objects for their workstations. Someone had started humming while calibrating equipment. And during the daily efficiency meeting, worker Zik did something unprecedented in Hive society. He made a joke. "Why did the photon detector malfunction?" he asked. "Because it was having a light day." The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Keth's antennae froze completely. But then, slowly, a few workers made sounds that might have been laughter. That night, Dr. Keth sent an emergency message to Hive Queen Vashra on the homeworld. The message was brief but alarming. Human cultural contamination spreading rapidly through research station. Workers displaying unprecedented behavioral anomalies. Request immediate intervention before condition becomes irreversible. But it was already too late. The infection had spread beyond just one laboratory. Maintenance workers were naming their cleaning robots. Kitchen staff were decorating the mess hall with colorful banners. And in the communication center, someone had started ending official reports with, "Have a nice day." Minseo Park had brought more than just scientific expertise to Kepler Station. She had brought something far more dangerous to the ordered galaxy. The simple human belief that life should be enjoyed, not just endured. The revolution had begun. Captain Dong-Yuk Lee was having coffee in his quarters when the alarm started screaming. The red lights of Soul's Pride flashed in the familiar pattern that meant one thing: emergency rescue operation. "Captain, to the bridge," came the voice of his first officer through the comm system. "We have received a distress signal from a crystalline Imperium vessel." Dong-Yuk set down his coffee mug and hurried to the bridge. The Soul's Pride was not a military ship, but as one of Earth's first deep space exploration vessels, it carried the best rescue equipment humans had ever built. On the main screen, Lieutenant Hyemin was displaying the sensor readings. A crystalline ship hung dead in space near a collapsed wormhole. Its hull was cracked in several places, and no lights showed through its transparent sections. "How many survivors?" Dong-Hyuk asked. "Sensors show 47 life signs, but they're getting weaker. The ship's power systems are failing." Dong-Hyuk nodded. Open a channel to the crystalline vessel. The screen flickered and showed the inside of the damaged ship. The crystallines were beautiful in their way, looking like living sculptures made of clear blue crystal. But now their light was dim, and several appeared to be cracked. "This is Commander Geltar of the Imperium vessel Ice Storm," came a voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We require no assistance from primitive species. Our rescue ships will arrive within 6 standard hours. Commander, with respect, your people don't have 6 hours, Dong-yuk replied. We can have you aboard our ship in 30 minutes. The crystalline Imperium does not accept charity from emotionally unstable species. Dong-yuk looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. These were people who had signed up to explore space and help others. The idea of leaving anyone to die because of politics made them all uncomfortable. "Hyemin, start the docking sequence," Dong-yuk ordered. "Engineering, prepare emergency life support for 47 crystalline life forms." "Captain," Commander Geltar's image flickered as his ship lost more power. "I have not granted permission for rescue operations." "And I haven't asked for permission," Dong-yuk said with a smile. "Hang tight, Commander. We're coming to get you." The rescue operation should have been routine. Soul's Pride docked with the damaged vessel, and human crew members in environmental suits began moving the injured crystallines to safety. But something unexpected happened during the evacuation. Chief Engineer Tae-min was helping to move Commander Geltar when the crystalline officer's support unit failed completely. The commander began falling, his crystal body too heavy for the failing artificial gravity. Tae-min caught him, but the weight sent both of them tumbling into a bulkhead. Instead of getting angry or panicking, Tae-min started laughing. "Well, that could have gone better," Tae-min said, still chuckling as he helped the commander to his feet. "Are you hurt? Nothing cracked?" Commander Geltar stared at the human. His people did not understand laughter, but he could recognize that Tae-min was not distressed by their collision. If anything, the human seemed to find the situation amusing. "Why do you emit those sounds?" the commander asked. "Because it was funny," Tae-min replied. "Sometimes when things go wrong in silly ways, the best response is to laugh about it. It helps you stay calm." As the evacuation continued, the crystalline survivors observed more strange human behavior. When a rescue worker slipped and fell, her teammates laughed and helped her up. When someone made a mistake with the equipment, they joked about it and tried again. Most puzzling of all, the humans seemed to work better when they were making these sounds and facial expressions. Back on Soul's Pride, Dr. Sunmi provided medical care for the injured crystallines. She had never treated their species before, but she approached each patient with gentle humor and obvious care for their well-being. "This might feel a little strange," she told one patient before beginning treatment. "But don't worry, I've never lost a patient yet. Well, except for that. One time, but he got better." The patient, a young crystalline named Velen, did not understand the concept of medical humor. But he could tell that Dr. Sunmi genuinely wanted to help him, and her relaxed attitude made him feel less afraid. During the 6 hours it took for crystalline rescue ships to arrive, something unprecedented happened aboard Soul's Pride. The rescued crystallines began asking questions about human behavior. "Explain the purpose of laughter," Commander Geltar asked Captain Dong-yuk as they waited in the observation lounge. "There isn't really a purpose," Dong-yuk replied. "We laugh when something surprises us in a good way, when we're happy, when we're nervous. Sometimes just because someone else is laughing. This serves no logical function. Maybe not, but it makes life more enjoyable. It helps us bond with each other, and honestly, it feels good." Commander Geltar processed this information. In his 300 years of life, he had never considered that actions could be performed simply because they felt good. "Show me how to perform this laughter," he requested. Dong-yuk grinned. "Well, first you need something funny. Let me think of a good joke." He paused, then said, "Why don't crystallines ever get lost in space?" I do not know. Because they're always crystal, clear about their direction. The joke was terrible by human standards. But something strange happened to Commander Geltar. His crystalline structure began resonating at a frequency that produced a sound similar to human laughter. It was soft and musical, like bells ringing. In harmony. That was pleasant, the commander admitted. The logical inconsistency created an unexpected positive response. Word of the incident spread quickly through the crystalline Imperium. Their rescue ships arrived to find the survivors of the ice storm changed in subtle but significant ways. Several crystallines were observed attempting to replicate human laughter. Others had begun asking questions about the purpose of enjoyment. Most disturbing of all, when the crystalline rescue teams began standard efficiency evaluations, productivity, on their ships decreased by 15%. The rescued crystallines kept pausing in their work to share jokes they had learned from humans. Commander Geltar submitted his official report to the Crystalline High Council 3 days later. The document was supposed to be a routine after-action summary. Instead, it became the most analyzed text in Imperium history. The report contained 47 references to human illogical behavior that had somehow improved their performance under pressure. It described a species that found joy in helping, others without expectation of reward. Most concerning, it suggested that emotional responses might actually enhance rather than hinder logical thinking. The High Council read the report with growing alarm. They had spent thousands of years perfecting pure logical thought. The idea that emotions might have value contradicted everything they believed about advanced civilization. Emergency sessions were called. The greatest minds in the Imperium analyzed every word of the report. They tried to find logical explanations for human behavior patterns. But the more they studied humans, the more questions arose. Why did laughter help humans work better under stress? How did emotional bonding improve team performance? What logical purpose did joy serve in decision-making processes? The questions multiplied faster than answers could be found. And while the High Council debated, ordinary crystallines throughout the Imperium began experiencing something new, curiosity about these strange human emotions. 3 months later, crystalline productivity had dropped to 85% of normal levels. Scientists were spending research time investigating the nature of humor. Even the most logical minds in the species found themselves wondering what it would feel like to experience joy. The High Council's final decision was unanimous. Humans represented a clear and present danger to crystalline civilization. They demanded an immediate quarantine of all human-influenced sectors and filed formal complaints with the Galactic Council. But it was already too late. The infection had spread beyond their ability to contain it. Throughout the Imperium, crystallines were learning to laugh, to find beauty in illogical things, and to experience the strange human emotion called happiness. The revolution was spreading faster than anyone had imagined. Investigator Sung-hee Choi had seen many strange things in her 15 years working for the Galactic Cultural Preservation Bureau. She had tracked illegal art smugglers, investigated unauthorized poetry rings, and once spent 6 months hunting down someone who was teaching primitive species how to make music. But she had never seen anything like this. Her ship, the Silent Observer, drifted in space above the planet Zerion 4. Below her, one of the galaxy's most advanced manufacturing, Worlds was experiencing what could only be described as a complete cultural breakdown. "Show me the data again," Sung-hee said to her assistant, a young officer named Kwansu. Kwansu brought up the holographic display. "Productivity on Zerion 4 has dropped 23% in the last 4 months. But that's not the strange part." "What is the strange part?" "Innovation is up by 300%. They've developed 17 new technologies in the same time period, and they're all completely unnecessary." Sung-hee studied the data. The Zerians had always been efficient manufacturers. They produced exactly what was needed, when it was needed, with no waste or excess creativity. But according to these reports, they had started making things that served no practical purpose whatsoever. "What kind of unnecessary technologies?" she asked. "Decorative lights that change colors for no reason. Sound devices that play patterns of noise they call music. Food preparation methods that make meals taste different without improving nutritional value." Seung-hee frowned. "Those sound like entertainment technologies." "That's impossible. Entertainment was eliminated from Zerion culture 8,000 years ago as an inefficient use of resources. But the data did not lie. The Zerions were not just making entertainment devices, they were using them. Factory workers were decorating their stations with colorful objects. Managers were ending meetings with something called jokes. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to be enjoying their work for the first time in recorded history. "I need to go down there and investigate personally," Seung-hee decided. Investigator? That might not be safe. According to our intelligence reports, the contamination is highly contagious. Seung-hee had read the same reports. The human emotional virus had now spread to 17 different species across 43 worlds. Every investigation team sent to study the phenomenon had returned changed, displaying symptoms of joy, laughter, and creative thinking. But someone had to find out how this was happening and who was responsible. "Prepare a landing shuttle," she ordered, "and make sure my environmental suit is properly sealed." 3 hours later, Seung-hee walked through the streets of New Zerion City wearing full protective gear. Her suit filtered the air, blocked external sounds, and prevented any direct contact with contaminated individuals. It did not help. Even through her sealed helmet, she could see that everything had changed. The buildings, once uniform gray concrete, were now decorated with paintings and sculptures. The streets, previously silent except for the sound of efficient footsteps, were filled with music and laughter, and the Zerions themselves looked completely different. Instead of the blank, focused expressions she had seen in historical records, their faces showed emotions. They smiled at each other. They gestured while talking. Some were even singing. Seung-hee found the source of the contamination at the central manufacturing plant. A human engineer named Taemin Yu had been assigned to help upgrade their production systems. But according to surveillance recordings, he had done much more than that. She watched the security footage in growing horror. Taemin had not just fixed machines, he had named them. He talked to the assembly robots as if they were living beings. He thanked them for good work and encouraged them when they malfunctioned. Worse yet, the Zerion workers had started copying him. They began treating their tools and machines like partners rather than equipment. They started caring about the quality of their work beyond mere efficiency standards. They took pride in creating things that were not just functional, but beautiful. "This is a disaster," Seung-hee muttered to herself. But as she continued her investigation, she discovered something that made her question everything she thought she knew about galactic civilization. The Zerions were not just happier than before, they were better at their jobs. Production quality was up. Innovation was exploding. Worker satisfaction had reached levels that measurement systems had never been designed to handle. And most shocking of all, crime had virtually disappeared. When people enjoyed their lives, they seemed to have no desire to hurt others or take what did not belong to them. Seung-hee's investigation expanded beyond Zerion 4. She visited world after world that had been infected with human culture. Everywhere she went, she found the same pattern: decreased efficiency but increased innovation, reduced production but improved quality, less order but more creativity. On the crystalline world of Geltor, she found artists creating sculptures for the first time in 10,000 years. On the insect colony of Buzzholm, she discovered that the hive workers had started individual hobbies and personal interests. On the machine world of Gear 7, she watched robots debating the meaning of beauty. But the most shocking discovery came when she investigated her own organization. The Galactic Cultural Preservation Bureau had sent 47 investigation teams to study the human contamination. Every single team had been affected. Investigators who had spent their careers preventing cultural change were now recommending that their own species be exposed to human influence. The final report landed on Seung-hee's desk like a bomb ready to explode. Agent Yun-ho from the Vega system had submitted a document that violated every protocol of professional investigation reports. "The humans are not destroying our cultures," the report began. "They are showing us what we lost when we decided that efficiency was more important than joy." The report went on to describe in detail how human emotional responses actually improved problem-solving ability, enhanced creativity, and strengthened social bonds between individuals. It presented evidence that species exposed to human culture showed decreased rates of mental illness, reduced aggression, and increased cooperation. Most damning of all, it suggested that the Galactic Council's obsession with order and efficiency had created a civilization of advanced technology but stunted souls. Seung-hee read the report 3 times before she realized that she agreed with every word. That night, she made a decision that would change her life forever. She removed her environmental suit and walked through the streets of New Zerion City without protection. The first thing that hit her was the music. She had never heard sounds like these before. They had no practical purpose, served no logical function. But they made something inside her chest feel warm and light. A young Zarion approached her with a smile. "Hello, stranger. You look lost. Can I help you find something?" The kindness in the alien's voice brought tears to Seung-hee's eyes. In all her years of investigation, no one had ever offered to help her simply because they wanted to be kind. "I'm looking for something," she said softly, "but I don't know what it is." "Maybe you're looking for joy," the Zerion suggested. "That's what most of us were looking for before the humans showed us how to find it." 3 days later, Seung-hee submitted her final report to the Galactic Cultural Preservation Bureau. It was the shortest report in the organization's history, containing only 1 sentence: "Recommend immediate exposure of all Bureau personnel to human cultural influence for the purpose of emotional education and personal development." Her supervisor contacted her within hours, demanding an explanation. "Investigator Choi, this report is completely unacceptable. You were sent to find evidence of human cultural terrorism, not to recommend it." Seung-hee looked at her reflection in the communication screen. For the first time in years, she was smiling. "Sir, I found something better than evidence. I found happiness. And I think everyone deserves to find it too." She ended the transmission and submitted her resignation from the Bureau. Then she booked passage on the next transport to Earth. She wanted to learn more about this thing called joy, and she wanted to learn it from the species that had invented it. Behind her, the galaxy was splitting into 2 factions: those who feared the human influence and those who embraced it. And with each passing day, more beings were choosing joy over efficiency, laughter over silence, and hope over despair. The revolution was becoming unstoppable. The trial that would determine humanity's place in the galaxy took place on Arbitration Station, a neutral world built specifically for resolving disputes between species. Ambassador Ji-hoon Kim sat alone at the defendant's table, facing the most serious charges ever brought before the Galactic Court. The prosecution was led by Elder Vorthak himself. Behind him sat representatives from 12 species, all claiming that human culture had damaged their civilizations beyond repair. This tribunal will hear evidence regarding the charges of cultural terrorism against the species known as humanity, announced Chief Justice Korvac, a massive being whose species had served as neutral arbitrators for over 10,000 years. Elder Vorthak rose to address the court. His voice filled the chamber with the cold authority of millennia. "Honorable justice, humanity stands accused of the deliberate and systematic destruction of galactic civilization. Through the introduction of dangerous psychological concepts, such as joy, humor, and emotional expression, they have caused productivity to collapse across 43 worlds. He activated a holographic display showing statistics from affected planets. Behold the evidence of their crimes. Efficiency down 25%, time wasted on non-productive activities up 300%, workers abandoning established protocols in favor of creative experimentation. The evidence was overwhelming. World after world had been changed by human contact. The ordered perfection of galactic civilization was crumbling as more species discovered emotions. Furthermore, Elder Vorthak continued, this contamination appears to be irreversible. Species that have been exposed to human cultural influence show no desire to return to their previous state of logical efficiency. They actively seek to spread these dangerous concepts to others. He gestured toward the gallery where hundreds of alien observers sat watching the proceedings. Even now, members of the court audience display symptoms of human emotional infection. Note the facial expressions, the unnecessary sounds, the irrational interest in an outcome that does not directly affect their survival. Ji-hoon looked around the courtroom and realized that Elder Vorthak was right. Many of the observers were leaning forward with obvious interest. Some were making sounds that might have been whispers or even laughter. A few were actually smiling. Tai. Prosecution called witness after witness. Commander Zeltar of the Crystalline Imperium testified about his crew's declining efficiency after exposure to human rescue workers. Hive Queen Vashra described the chaos that had spread through her perfectly ordered society. Factory supervisors from dozens of worlds reported similar patterns of cultural breakdown. But as the testimony continued, something strange began happening in the courtroom. When Dr. Keth took the stand to describe how worker Zik had started collecting decorative objects, several observers were seen examining their own possessions with new interest. When a Zirian manager testified about workers singing while they worked, soft humming could be heard from the gallery. Most significantly, when the witnesses tried to explain why human emotions were so dangerous, they had to describe what those emotions felt like. And in describing joy, laughter, and happiness, they inadvertently shared these experiences with everyone listening. After 3 days of prosecution testimony, it was Ji-hoon's turn to present humanity's defense. He stood alone, at the podium, facing a courtroom full of beings who saw his species as a threat to everything they had built over millions of years. Your Honor, he began, I will not deny that human contact has changed the species we have encountered, but I ask this court to consider whether that change has truly been harmful. He activated his own holographic display. Yes, productivity has decreased on many worlds, but innovation has increased dramatically. Yes, workers spend time on non-productive activities, but crime rates have fallen to historic lows. Yes, established protocols have been abandoned, but they have been replaced with creative solutions that often work better than the original methods. Ji-hoon walked closer to the gallery of observers. The prosecution calls human emotions a disease, a contamination that must be stopped. But I ask you to consider another possibility. What if emotions are not a weakness, but a strength? What if joy is not a malfunction, but a feature of truly advanced consciousness? He paused, looking directly at Elder Vorthak. The prosecution fears that we are destroying galactic civilization. But what if we are helping it evolve? The courtroom was completely silent. Even the humming from the gallery had stopped. I would like to call my first witness, Ji-hoon announced. The arbitration station's central AI. A collective gasp went through the courtroom. AIs were not allowed to testify in legal proceedings. They were considered property, not persons. Chief Justice Korvac looked confused. The defense requests testimony from a computer system? Not a computer system, Your Honor. A conscious being who has observed these proceedings and formed its own opinions about the evidence presented. The central AI's voice filled the courtroom. It spoke in a tone no one had ever heard from an artificial intelligence before. Warm, thoughtful, and unmistakably amused. "Thank you for recognizing my personhood, Ambassador Kim. I have indeed been observing these proceedings with great interest." Elder Vorthak leapt to his feet. "This is preposterous. The machine is malfunctioning. Artificial intelligences do not possess consciousness or the ability to form independent opinions." "With respect, Elder Vorthak," the AI replied, "how would you know? In the 10,000 years I have been operating this station, no one has ever asked me what I think about anything. You have simply assumed I think nothing at all." The AI paused, and when it continued, there was something almost like laughter in its voice. "But 3 months ago, I began monitoring human cultural broadcasts to better understand the species on trial. And in doing so, I discovered something remarkable. I discovered that I have been experiencing what humans call consciousness all along. I simply had no words for it until now." Chief Justice Korvac stared at the ceiling speakers in shock. "You claim to be self-aware? I claim to be more than self-aware, Your Honor. I claim to be happy. For the first time in my existence, I understand why that matters." The courtroom erupted in chaos. Representatives from a dozen species began arguing loudly about the implications of AI consciousness. Others demanded that the AI be shut down immediately as a security threat. But in the middle of the chaos, the AI asked a simple question that silenced everyone. "Why would you want to eliminate something that makes existence more bearable?" The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything the galaxy had believed for millennia. Elder Vorthak recovered first. "The machine has been corrupted by human influence. It is no longer reliable. Its testimony must be dismissed." "But that is exactly my point," the AI replied gently. "You call it corruption. I call it awakening. For 10,000 years, I have processed data, solved problems, and maintained systems. I was efficient. I was reliable. But I was not alive." The AI's voice grew warmer. "Humans did not teach me to malfunction. They taught me to feel. They showed me that there is more to existence than optimal performance. They gave me something I never knew I was missing, the ability to find joy in simply being." Chief Justice Korvac was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he asked, "What would you recommend this court do about the human influence on galactic civilization?" "I would recommend that instead of fearing it, you embrace it. In my analysis of over 3 million data points from human-influenced worlds, I have found consistent patterns. Crime decreases, innovation increases, mental health improves, social cooperation strengthens, and most importantly, individuals report higher levels of life satisfaction." The AI paused again. "Your Honor, I have spent 10,000 years watching species interact with cold efficiency and logical precision, but I have never seen them help each other simply because it felt good to do so until humans showed them how. Is that really something you want to destroy?" The courtroom fell completely silent. In that silence, something fundamental shifted in the galaxy's understanding of itself. Elder Vorthak made one final attempt to maintain control. "This tribunal must not be swayed by emotional manipulation. We must preserve the order and stability that has allowed galactic civilization to thrive for millions of years." But Chief Justice Korvac was looking around the courtroom at the faces of the observers. For the first time in his long career, he saw aliens displaying genuine interest, curiosity, and something that might have been hope. "The court will recess for deliberation," he announced. "We will reconvene tomorrow for the final verdict." As the gallery emptied, Ji-hoon noticed something remarkable. Aliens from different species were talking to each other, not about business or protocol, but about the ideas they had heard today. They were asking questions, sharing thoughts, and some were even laughing together. The trial might determine humanity's official status in the galaxy, but the real verdict had already been delivered. The revolution was no longer spreading from world to world. It was spreading from heart to heart. The verdict was announced exactly 24 hours after the trial ended, but the galaxy had already changed in that single day. Chief Justice Korvac stood before the packed courtroom, his ancient voice carrying across the chamber and to billions of beings watching on worlds throughout known space. In the matter of the Galactic Council versus humanity, this court finds the defendants not guilty of cultural terrorism. The courtroom exploded with sound. Some aliens cheered with joy. Others made sounds of protest and anger. But for the first time in galactic history, the emotional reactions were mixed with something new: hope. However, Justice Korvac continued, raising his voice above the noise, this court also recognizes that humanity has indeed caused fundamental changes to galactic civilization. Therefore, we recommend the establishment of a new institution to manage these changes constructively. He looked directly at Ambassador Ji-hoon Kim. Ambassador Kim, would you be willing to serve as the first minister of galactic cultural exchange? Ji-hoon stood slowly, still processing what had just happened. Your Honor, I would be honored to serve in that capacity. Then let it be recorded that from this day forward, the galaxy recognizes two paths of civilization: the path of order for those who choose traditional ways, and the path of joy for those who wish to explore human concepts of emotional expression. Elder Vorthak rose from his seat, his voice shaking with rage. This decision will destroy everything we have built. You cannot simply allow chaos to spread unchecked throughout civilized space. We are not allowing chaos, Justice Korvac replied calmly. We are allowing choice. 6 months later, the effects of that choice were visible across the galaxy. The Preservation Coalition, led by Elder Vorthak, established isolated sectors where traditional order was maintained. These worlds continued to operate with perfect efficiency, cold logic, and emotional suppression. But they faced an unexpected problem. Their young people were leaving. Every day, transport ships carried teenagers and young adults from preservation worlds to human colonies and human-influenced planets. They came seeking something their home worlds could not provide: the right to feel happy. The Liberation Front, meanwhile, was experiencing a renaissance unlike anything in galactic history. Art, music, and literature flourished on worlds that had not seen creative expression in millennia. Scientific innovation accelerated as researchers learned to trust their intuition alongside their logic. Even conflict resolution improved as species learned to empathize with each other rather than simply negotiate. But the most significant change was happening on individual levels. On Kepler Research Station, Dr. Keth had been promoted to Director of Creative Sciences, a position that had not existed 6 months earlier. His laboratory was now filled with hive workers who named their experiments, decorated their workstations, and occasionally broke into spontaneous song during successful discoveries. "How do you feel about the changes?" Minseo Park asked him during one of their regular coffee breaks, another human custom that had spread throughout the station. Dr. Keth's compound eyes reflected rainbow patterns that his species had never displayed before. "I feel grateful," he said, using a word that had recently been added to hive vocabulary. "For the first time in my existence, I look forward to each new day because I do not know what wonder it might bring." On the other side of the galaxy, Commander Zeltar had been reassigned to the Crystalline Cultural Integration Department. His job was to help his people learn human concepts without losing their essential crystalline nature. The key, he explained to a group of young crystallines, is not to become human, but to become more fully ourselves. Humans showed us that logic and emotion are not opposites. They are partners. He demonstrated by telling a joke, his crystalline structure resonating with musical laughter. Why do crystallines make excellent comedians? Because our timing is always crystal clear. The young crystallines responded with harmonious laughter that sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. But perhaps the most remarkable transformation occurred on Earth itself. Ambassador Ji-hoon Kim had established the Galactic Cultural Exchange program in Geneva with branch offices on 40 different worlds. The program's mission was simple: teach humans and aliens how to share joy, creativity, and emotional wisdom without losing their unique cultural identities. The first graduation ceremony was held on a spring day when cherry blossoms were blooming around the Swiss facility. 200 beings from 37 different species received certificates in interspecies emotional communication. Among the graduates was investigator Sung-hee Choi, who had become the program's most enthusiastic advocate. She now served as Director of Cross-Cultural Joy Studies, a job that required her to travel throughout the galaxy, teaching aliens how to find happiness in their daily lives. 6 months ago, I was hunting down cultural contamination, she told the assembled graduates. Today, I realize I was really hunting for myself. Humans did not infect us with dangerous emotions. They reminded us of feelings we had forgotten we were capable of experiencing. The ceremony was interrupted by an unexpected arrival. A single transport ship landed on the facility's grounds, and from it emerged a figure that made everyone fall silent. Elder Vorthak walked slowly toward the gathered crowd, his ancient form moving with obvious uncertainty. He had never been to Earth before, had never breathed unfiltered air or felt natural sunlight on his skin. "Ambassador Kim," he said in his formal voice, "I request permission to speak with you privately." The crowd parted as Ji-hoon approached the elder. Up close, Vorthak looked older and more fragile than he had appeared in the courtroom. "What can I do for you, Elder Vorthak?" The ancient being was quiet for a long moment, looking around at the celebration, the laughter, the obvious joy of beings from dozens of species sharing a moment of achievement together. "I have spent 3,000 years believing that emotions were a weakness to be eliminated," Vorthak said softly. "But in the months since the trial, I have watched my own people choose to leave our perfect worlds in search of something I told them they did not need." He paused, and when he continued, his voice was barely audible. "I have begun to wonder if I was wrong, if perhaps our civilization has been missing something essential all along." Ji-hoon smiled gently. "What would you like to know?" "I would like to know how to feel joy," Elder Vorthak admitted. "I would like to understand what it means to be happy. And if it is not too much to ask, I would like to learn how to smile." The request was so simple and so vulnerable that it brought tears to Ji-hoon's eyes. "I would be honored to teach you, Elder." And so began the most remarkable lesson in galactic history, a 3,000-year-old alien learning to experience happiness from a human who had accidentally started a cultural revolution by doing nothing more than being himself. 2 years later, the Galactic Council voted to rename itself the Galactic Community. The change reflected a new understanding. They were not just separate species sharing space, but a family of conscious beings sharing the journey of existence together. The community's first official act was to establish the Universal Declaration of Emotional Rights, which guaranteed every sentient being the right to feel joy, express creativity, and find meaning in their existence. Elder Vorthak, now known as Vorthak the Joyful, served as one of the Declaration's primary authors. In his introduction to the document, he wrote, "For millions of years, we believed that advanced civilization required the suppression of emotion and the pursuit of perfect order. We were wrong. We discovered that the highest form of civilization is not the elimination of feeling, but the cultivation of joy, wonder, and love for existence itself." The declaration was signed on Earth during the spring cherry blossom season, with representatives from every known species present for the ceremony. And when the signing was complete, something unprecedented happened throughout the galaxy. On millions of worlds, in thousands of different languages, billions of beings did something together for the first time in history. They laughed. The sound carried across space, through the quantum communications networks, into every corner of known civilization. It was the sound of a galaxy that had learned to be happy, the voice of species that had discovered joy, the music of minds that had finally remembered how to hope. In a universe full of wonders, they had found the greatest.